The thing is this. Sometimes all we're waiting on is permission to be as big as we know we can be. So, I hereby give you permission to be big. If you have been waiting for a sign that it's okay for you to step into who you truly are, this is your sign.
Hi everyone, so today we are here at AdCon 2024. We're just about to go on stage, so I'm going to be on in about 10 minutes from now, so I need to go and get mic'd up. It's going to be quite a different talk. AdCon is a conference run by my friend John Pemberthy, and it's very focused on like course creators, consultants, coaches, entrepreneurs. But the presentation that I'm going to give is a little bit different to what a lot of the other speakers are talking about, which, it's things like, video sales letters and ads and marketing strategies and email marketing. I'm going to give a talk that is about aligning your business with your values and making sure that you don't feel burnt out because you're doing something that's out of alignment with your values. So this talk's a lot deeper than any presentation I've ever given before. It's deep, it's emotional, and I find that's quite hard to deliver, but I think sometimes that's what people need to kind of get them over the line to make that jump into entrepreneurship. And I know I definitely would have benefited from hearing someone's story like mine, all the trials and tribulations, all the bumps in the road, nearly going bankrupt, all of the real problems, the raw, unfiltered problems that come with it. So looking forward to giving this talk, and better go and get mic'd up.
One.
Put your hands together, help me welcome to the stage, Lewis Smith!
High energy intro music there, that's good, set the tone well. Morning everyone, my name's Lewis Smith, and here are my 5 keys to lifestyle design in the context of running an online business. Live in alignment with your values, break free of false comforts, choose your business model wisely, take radical ownership, and lean in to false fears. So I'm going to explain how you can apply each of these lessons, keys into your own business, whether you're a course creator, a consultant, or any kind of entrepreneur. I'm going to introduce each of these stories and lessons by telling you about 5 pivotal moments in my own entrepreneurial journey. And I'm going to warn you, I'm going to get deeper than I ever have in a presentation like this before. So I might laugh at times, I might cry, you might cry, who knows? So the first key is this: live in alignment with your values. Everyone is interested in a healthy work-life balance, right? Even if you love what you do for a living, there's just more to life, isn't there? My parents grew up with that classic boomer mindset, and for them, financial security was their number one value. And that meant that at times in my upbringing, family time got squeezed to make room for their jobs. It meant that they had to make sacrifices in other areas of their life if that was their number one value. I remember vividly as a child, my dad taking me to football practice on a Sunday morning, pouring with rain as it always is in this country, and he was standing there drenched, wearing his raincoat. He'd have to get roped into refereeing one of the games. And I just remember walking back to the car with him after those football training sessions and him just giving me that post-match analysis that dads are so good at. And those are some of my most joyful memories thinking back. But as an adult and as a professional, I also remember the sacrifices that my parents had to make for our financial stability as a family. Sunday mornings with dad at football were great, but I might not then get to see my dad for much of the rest of the week. I remember sitting on the stairs as a child, yeah, that's me, on the stairs looking out the window and just longing for my dad to come home late into the evening. But of course, my dad had to be there in person because he was running an estate agency in London. So he was, he had to be there in person, closing deals in person. And my mum was a flight attendant, so she couldn't exactly do that job remotely. And so because of the values that they had and because of the limits of technology available to them at the time, they had to prioritize their work over family time. So whatever your conflicting values are with your own work life between work and whatever your other passions are in life, unless you're physically tied to the location in which your business is conducted, today we don't need to choose between them. Aren't we so incredibly lucky to live in an age where that's possible, where we can have both? Much like my dad, I used to have an hour-long commute as well into the office and used to drive into London. And I used to actually quite enjoy that commute because I could put on a podcast and, get into work mode, get my head in gear, and then I'd do the reverse on the way back home, listen to a podcast, decompress, get ready for, home time as we do. Nowadays, I might be hosting a podcast in my home office 1 minute, and the next minute I've got these two toddlers dressed as Fireman Sam ready to tackle me to the ground outside the office door. Those are two very different hats to have to change between quickly. But I really quite enjoy that juxtaposition of work and family life. I choose to put my work and family together in the same location because for me that maximizes my number one value, which is family time. And I am able to enjoy those funny, those frantic moments and that switching of gears. It just reminds me that I made the decision, I chose to live my values. I think my dad would have loved to be able to work and spend as much time together as a family as we do today. And I can always lock my office door if I need a moment alone. Quite important. So how about you? Have you consciously built your business in a way that aligns with your values? If you need more time away from work, can you structure your business in a different way to use your time more effectively? One of the best time-leveraged activities I've done in recent times is to start a podcast. Now there's hundreds of hours of my voice running 24/7 on the internet all over the world, giving value to thousands of viewers and listeners, some of whom will then go on to join our e-commerce coaching program, but without the need for one-to-one selling from me. The same applies to video sales letters, automated webinars, as I'm sure John will no doubt talk you through more about during this event. But however you choose to structure your business, just make sure it aligns with your values. Because otherwise, you'll start to ask yourself, why am I feeling burnt out? Why am I not happy? Didn't I choose to be an entrepreneur? And the answer is, yes, you did. But the micro decisions you make along the way can start pulling you apart. Also, I'm not being compelled to do this talk by a boss. For me, lifestyle design means family first. I want to be able to travel with my family at the drop of a hat. I don't want anyone telling us where we need to be and when. So if you're feeling burnt out or maybe like you don't like your business at certain points, is it because something's out of alignment with your values? And what shift can you commit to right now to get your actions back in alignment with your values? Is home office chaos stressing you out? These are my two latest sales rep hires for the company. Maybe you just need to reframe your view of that chaos though, because you chose it. You wanted it. This is the life you designed. And so the chaos is the reward. Try and embrace it. And top tip for anyone who does work from home, get a lock for your office door. Many podcast recordings have had this scenario occur until I got that lock. But that was the first key to lifestyle design. Live in alignment with your values. Now the second key is this. Break free of false comforts. Are you sitting comfortably? Let me tell you about a time that I broke free from what I later realized were just false comforts. I was driving to the office one day, commuting in, and I kept glancing down at the passenger seat next to me because it had a white envelope on it. And inside that envelope was a devastating piece of paper that had the power to reshape the rest of my life. 8 years earlier, I just secured a place on a prestigious and competitive medical devices graduate scheme with this big corporation. And now, years of graft later, of climbing the career ladder, of a decade nearly spent of my young professional life, a very major chunk of my very sense of self was all about to come to an end. I was about to hand in my notice. A few months earlier, I'd been meeting with a colleague at this swanky hotel in London, and I remember walking past some tech bros like these, the ones they've got on their MacBooks, they've got their flat whites, working on their startups, like super cool, relaxed. And my colleague looked at them and then said to me, "Have you ever considered being an entrepreneur? I've always seen you as someone who might thrive in that world." And I said, "No, not really." But the question bothered me, and I thought, why have I never considered it? Because now you mention it, those flat whites look delicious. So I went home and I did what many of us have done, and I Googled, how do I start a business? And I came across Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek. And for the next few days, I listened to that book on Audible on repeat. And inspired by Ferriss's concept of location independence that he talks about, I thought to myself, why shouldn't I move to Thailand and start an online business? Saying it out loud at the time still felt a little bit wild, so when I shared the idea with my wife Becky, at the time my fiancée Becky, I was expecting to hear a list of reasonable and grounded reasons as to why we shouldn't book a one-way ticket to Thailand with only a month's savings in our pockets. But to my surprise, she called my bluff. "Yeah? Why not?" she shrugged. "After we get married, let's move to Chiang Mai in Thailand and go on a never-ending honeymoon." Now, I thought at this moment that Becky might be presenting me with a time-limited offer that could expire at any moment. So I snapped it up and said, "Deal," before she could retract it. "Let's do it." But suddenly the pressure was really on. So there I was, walking into my boss's office, envelope in my hand, closing the door behind me. The last possible moment for me to just fold up the letter, put it back in my suit pocket and run out of there was literally happening right then. I handed him the letter. He opened it. He looked at it. He looked up at me. Then he looked back down at the letter. This was a life-changing moment, so a lot of the detailed head movements still feel quite fresh. And then he said, "Is there anything we can do to change your mind?" And I said, "No, actually, we're moving to Chiang Mai in northern Thailand to become digital nomads, and I'm focusing on my side hustle primarily for lifestyle design." And his expression... Unfortunately, his reaction wasn't as good as that. He just went completely blank. I may as well have been speaking a foreign language to him. He had no idea what I was talking about. But at the same time, my wife Becky was quitting her job as a showbiz editor, and that evening, on a bench in Holland Park in London, near where we lived at the time, having just handed back the keys to the company car, the company laptops, the phones, the golden handcuffs, Becky produced 2 cans of Marks & Spencer's gin and tonic on the park bench. She cracked them open, startling a nearby London pigeon. And as we sat there, numb, we both just thought, have we just made a terrible mistake? And after what felt like an eternity, Becky just turned to me and said, "Cheers." The point of the story is, firstly, don't expect your boss or anyone for that matter to understand your dreams, let alone help you realize them. Don't wait for a colleague to point out that you could be more. You already have that power to make that change yourself. Secondly, you are not your job. I'd over-identified with that corporate 9-to-5 lifestyle, and I thought that the risk of leaving a company like that meant an unbearable loss of security. Now I realize the biggest risk was really just remaining trapped in that world for the rest of my career, commuting every day and having my hours dictated to me. You tell your clients every day that they have the power to make change. You challenge their limiting beliefs, and you help them push beyond their comfort zones. So my question to you is, what sources of security have you allowed to become golden shackles in your own life? Where have you perhaps over-identified with a professional activity? And where have you become stuck in a comfort trap? And how will you start to break free from those false comforts today? Okay, 2 keys there to lifestyle design. Live in alignment with your values and break free of false comforts. Here comes number 3. Choose your business model wisely. One of the great things about selling online is that you can make sales while you sleep. When I first started my very first e-commerce store, I picked a niche in which I was going to make my millions. men's ties. See, I'm not even wearing one today. These were products that I sourced cheaply from AliExpress, and I dropshipped them to my customers and, get them nice and cheap, sell them on. So I set up this dropshipping website following a few YouTube tutorials. And one evening, I was so excited, I set my Facebook ads live, sending traffic to my dropshipping store, selling these men's ties. And when I woke up, it was right there in front of me. Shopify notification for £19.99, first sale, done. I'd cracked it. I'd completed e-commerce as far as I was concerned. I couldn't wait to tell my wife, Becky. I was like, our lives are going to change. We're going to become tie millionaires. But then I opened my emails. Oh no, a complaint, top of the inbox, from the customer who'd purchased the first tie. And it read, "Where's my tie? Is this a scam? Where's the confirmation email? I didn't realize I'd be waiting for 30 days for delivery. I want my money back." And that customer left us a complaint on Shopify. They requested a refund, and then they even went on to leave us a bad review on our Facebook page. Disaster. My life as an e-commerce entrepreneur was suddenly in ruins. That reputational damage, that crushing feeling after the elation of the first sale had all come crashing down. Had this whole enterprise just been a terrible mistake? But I started to crunch the numbers, and I realized that it would take me the same amount of effort to sell a £1,000 product as it would to sell a £10 product. The difference would be, though, that I'd make 100 times more in profit by selling the higher ticket products. So what if I switched to high ticket sales? So I tried to apply what was quite a popular model in the USA market of high ticket dropshipping and just do it in the UK. But I hit some big roadblocks attempting to do that. Things like, how on earth do you find suppliers who are willing to do that in the UK? If you find them, what on earth do you say to them? And how do you deal with things like VAT, corporation tax, the distant selling regulations, all of this different legalities and terminology? It took me a long time and I got a lot wrong, but eventually I did crack it. And the Dropship Unlocked program that I now run, where we've shown thousands of people how to start and grow their own e-commerce businesses using our home turf advantage model, which involves working with UK suppliers, selling products with next day delivery, and these are products upwards of £1,000, £2,000, even £6,500, £7,000 on one single order, one sale. And so now it's not just me making sales like this, it's many of our members. So later on, when I'd had this idea and I was setting up my new high-ticket dropshipping business, I was laying in bed one day, feeling a bit washed out after a tough day. And if there's one thing that can snap you out of the feeling sorry for yourself, it's the cha-ching cash register sound that Shopify makes when you make a new sale. If you ever had one, you'll know what I mean. Especially when that new sale is for £900 and then a one straight after it for £950. I think it was at that moment that I realized, hang on a sec, I've just made more profit from bed than if I'd commuted into the office, worked for a full day, and then commuted back. So I jumped up at that moment and I knew I was onto something big. The point is, the business model that you choose drastically changes how fast you can reach your goals. So let me ask you something. In your coaching, consulting, course creation business, who do you serve? Are you selling the equivalent of the £19.99 men's ties to people who, and we've all seen these customers, you sell them something for £7 and they expect the world from you. They expect you to move mountains, versus when you sell something for £4,000 or £8,000 or £10,000 and the reaction is just, money's transferred, it's in your account. Nice, easy customers. So what steps can you take today or this week to better leverage your time and scale your business? In other words, how can you implement the third key to lifestyle design, which is to choose your business model wisely? Right, 3 keys down now. Live in alignment with your values, break free of false comforts, and choose your business model wisely. Now, we're going deeper. Take radical ownership is the 4th key. I'm going to tell you about how I got through the worst day in my life as an entrepreneur. This was without a doubt the closest I've ever come to throwing in the towel and just going back to my old job. my absolute rock bottom moment. One morning in Chiang Mai, where we were living by the time, I needed to withdraw some dividends from my business just to cover the cost of living for the month ahead. And I logged into my online banking and I noticed that we had some big bills coming up. And we owed a supplier £20,000 for sales that we'd made recently, but I didn't have it in the account. Plus, we had a huge VAT bill coming up. What is it with VAT? John said he had a problem with that as well. This problem, this cash flow problem, had been masked. You might think, well, how did you get in that situation? But it had been masked by cash coming into the business, making things look like they were doing well, but I hadn't been accounting for taxes properly. I hadn't been setting aside exactly what we'd spent on ads and making sure that our cost per acquisition was within our target range. And suddenly the numbers just did not add up anymore. So I rang my accountant and I said, I need to take some funds out of the business. How much can I take? And he said, well, it doesn't look like you have anything to take. And a feeling of panic, of shock, and awful disbelief came over me. How had a problem like this got so out of control without me even realizing it? So Becky and I decided to head out and just get some lunch and talk things through. And so we walked out to this pad thai street food stand, and there was a long queue of people at this stand. It didn't look great, but you know what they say about places with a crowd of people, right? It must be good. Needless to say, the next morning we had the most awful food poisoning of our lives. Nausea, dread, on top of this cash crisis that I didn't know how to fix. So I forced myself to do some work and see if I could just piece this mess back together. So I logged into Slack just to check in with my 2 virtual assistants who I'd hired a few months earlier. I'd brought them into the business quite quickly just to take over some of the admin from me. But that day, they hadn't logged in. I gave it another hour, and then another hour, and I'd messaged them, couldn't reach them. And I had this horrible, overwhelming feeling of despair, of abandonment, and doom, that I'd been left to deal with everything at my worst possible point. No cash, no appetite, and now no team. It was an awful, awful couple of days. As soon as I started to feel a bit better, I realized I need to take radical ownership over this business. So I went into monk mode because I needed to understand what had gotten wrong in my business and how I could fix it. So I grabbed my laptop and I ran across to the hotel lobby across the road from where we lived in Chiang Mai. And I just sat there with my laptop and I ordered coffee after croissant, and I just worked my way through how to fix the numbers in this business and make sure that I really understood how much profit we were making on every order, how much we'd set aside for taxes, and also making sure we had the money there to pay the suppliers. I started eventually to piece together a way out of this, and it involved spending my entire life savings buffer of £20,000 at the time that I'd set aside in my final salaried job just to pay the supplier and cover some of the taxes. My entire life savings gone, just like that. But now I knew the details of my business's finances. I had become a numbers guy. I didn't think I was a numbers guy before that. I thought, don't need to be. But as a CEO, I now realize you have to be a numbers guy, because only then can you confidently delegate things in your business. So that's lesson number 1 about taking radical ownership. You have to master something first before you can confidently give it away. So my questions to you about that aspect of radical ownership are: what details in your own business are you perhaps avoiding mastering? Have you already delegated something that you don't fully understand without first mitigating the risk? And can you go into monk mode this week to get to grips with it and delegate it safely? Those 2 VAs, those virtual assistants, never logged in again. And I didn't even hear from them until over a year later. And do you know what they said when they finally messaged me? Sorry, we're late. They didn't really. They said that they'd been having some personal problems and they felt unable to tell me as a boss at the time, which just made me feel even worse because I'd hired quickly, but I hadn't invested the time properly in onboarding them, in building relationships with them. I just rushed to outsource something as quickly as possible, but I hadn't even mastered the basics of building a team, of managing a team, of building trust and making my business a nice place to work. So when things got tough and I discovered the need for radical ownership because they just left. I realized I have to take ownership over this. And that's another aspect of the business, taking ownership over how you build your team and culture. Nowadays, I get my team together every week. We have full visibility over each other's projects. We start with wins on those calls, and then we talk about what we worked on last week, priorities for the week ahead. But we're present, we're transparent, and we help each other. We've got a great culture of trust. So that's lesson number 2 about radical ownership. Hire slowly and then build and maintain relationships. And so my question to you is, how can you take radical ownership over your business relationships and culture? And lesson number 3, and this is a really important one, instead of following the crowd and doing what you think looks popular, take radical ownership over your own choices and be very careful where you buy your pad thai. All right, live in alignment with your values, break free of false comforts, choose your business model wisely, and take radical ownership. Now, the 5th and final key to lifestyle design is lean in to false fears. I left out an important character earlier when I was telling you about the evenings at home, waiting on the steps, looking out the window, waiting for my dad to come home from work after a long day at the office. On many occasions, it was actually my grandmother, Anne, or Nan Anne, as I used to call her, who looked after me. And quite honestly, she really helped shape me as a person. Grandparents can really shift your perspective. They have that energizing power of directness. And Nan Anne was quite ill in a hospice towards the end of her life. So I used to try to visit her regularly. And one day I went to visit her and I had my laptop because I was coming back from work. And I wanted to show her my new online business idea. It's quite absurd, really. I was there eating her cheese and crackers that the nurses had given her because she had no appetite because of all the drugs she was on. And it was in this weird, sad place, this end-of-life palliative care hospice. I'm just sitting there eating crackers, waiting to show my Nan my dropshipping business. But she always wanted to know what I was up to. Nan always cared about that. So I opened up my laptop and I showed her our new e-commerce website. And I was like, Nan, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to dropship products, and then we're going to make our sales online, and then we're going to use the money to quit our jobs. And then Becky and I are going to move to Chiang Mai, which is northern Thailand, full of digital nomads. And talk about pitching to the wrong audience. She really had no idea what I was talking about. But unlike my boss, when he read my resignation letter, her expression wasn't blank. Nan looked at me with her unwavering belief, and she just said, "Go for it, Lou. Why not? Hey, why not have a go?" And her enthusiasm felt good. And I think deep down, I knew that I had to honor her unconditional support, which meant I had to onboard some suppliers. And that meant making some difficult and awkward phone calls, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't quite believe that I was actually a business owner at the time. I don't think it really felt real, and I wondered whether I was actually worthy of even doing it. But I wanted to do it. If just for Nan, I wanted her to be proud of me. Nan never made it to our wedding. And I vividly remember clearing the things out of her house a few days after she passed away. The memories flooding back, the sadness. At one point when her sofa was being lifted up and walked past me, it just got too much and I had to go outside and just reset. So I went out to the car and I thought back to showing Nan the dropshipping store a few days earlier. And I realized I never had called that supplier. And I could hear her voice saying, "Go for it, Lou. If anyone, why not you?" So I called the supplier and I made the pitch. I said, "Hi there, we'd love to sell your products on our store to customers on our website. Would you be open to supplying us?" And the line went quiet. And then the supplier said, "Yeah, that's great, Lewis. I'll send the forms over to you now and we'll get you signed up." Couldn't believe it. Suddenly I was a business owner. And that supplier, that one phone call, went on to generate us over £3 million in sales over the next few years from one phone call. And then I onboarded many, many more suppliers since that day. But the point... The point of this story is that life is short. If you're procrastinating about doing something, about making a call, about taking an action in your business, What is it that you know you need to do, but perhaps you're just waiting for someone's permission, or maybe for someone to prompt you like they did to me? Or perhaps, even after everything you have achieved so far, some small part of you still doubts whether you're really worthy. That is false fear. Lean into it. So what are you waiting for? What are you sitting on right now that if you just did it, it could unlock a completely new path in your life? Don't wait to take action in life. Don't leave it until it's too late. That's the message that I can bring to you from the person who had such a profound impact on my own life. And that's the 5th key to lifestyle design. Take action and lean in to false fears. So these are my keys to lifestyle design. You heard how they played out in my business based on my own values and my own entrepreneurial journey. You probably have different values to me. You'll have definitely had a different journey to me. But I just wonder if these 5 keys might just be universal. How many of these ring true for you? Which one is the most important one for you this year? And can you commit to taking specific action on it today? Thank you for listening. Here you go. There we go. Job done. Heart's pounding a bit there, but yeah, that was good fun. Thought it went well. Yeah, we got the message across. Let's see, we'll have a chat to people later on, see what the feedback was like, but felt good. So the audience in there were amazing. You know, in an audience, you just feel like they're on your side, and they were just kind of laughing at the right points, and felt like they were really with me on the journey. And yeah, it felt really, really good. It makes a big difference. So credit to John for hosting such an incredible event and having an amazing and engaged audience. And the MC, Devon Brown, really makes it. He brings the energy, that's for sure.